Hello and welcome. Today my presentation is going to be focused on cloud-based enterprise systems. All right, so typically when we hear of cloud-based computing or the cloud, we tend to think of the advantages associated with that. And what I mean by advantages is typically we hear it's cheaper, we hear it's faster, we hear it's easier, so we hear things of that. And the thing that seems to be overlooked, or at least maybe not given as much attention, is the concerns that are related to especially a cloud-based enterprise system. And so that's really the purpose of this slide show in this presentation, is to take you through and help all of you gain at least some key items that you should at least pay attention to or watch out for in relation to enterprise cloud-based systems. All right, before we dive into taking a look at the concerns associated with cloud-based enterprise systems, I wanted to make sure that we have a common understanding of really what is cloud-based computing. And so it's really a term that refers to application, services, or resources that are made available on demand to users through the internet from a cloud computing service provider. And so with that, there's three different cloud service delivery models that are available. The first one of these being software as a service, and you can see I have ERP listed there. Also an example for software as a service would be Microsoft Office 365 would be an element or an example of that. Number two is platform as a service, and really this is intended for application development. And then so this is where they have web servers and development tools available. Number three is infrastructure as a service, and this is just really a virtual server or virtual machine that you can use for storage and things of that nature. Dive into the key concerns around the cloud-based enterprise systems, and you can see on the slide I have 5 of those concerns listed. I did list them in order of what I thought was order or priority of importance. The first one being security risks. Number 2 is total cost of ownership. 3 being performance and reliability risks. Number 4 is customization and integration risks. And then finally, vendor reliance. All right, so let's take a deeper look at security risks. And so why should we be concerned with security when we're focused on a cloud-based enterprise system? Well, the first and probably the most important reason is that we should be cautious is because really the company's data is stored on the cloud. And so it's stored somewhere out there on a server. And so we want to make sure that we get the understanding of really where is it stored? Is it in a data center? Is it on someone's computer that is maybe not getting backed up? So there's a lot of items that we should be at least asking the questions and making sure that we get an acceptable answer. So for example, like I mentioned, backups, is there proper data backups that are occurring with that? Is there server redundancy in case of a failover? And then also, who has physical access to the data center? And then who has access to the data? All right, the next concern that we're going to look at is the total cost of ownership. So typically, a cloud-based enterprise solution would use a subscription-based pricing model that it remains the same price or does not depreciate over time. And so with that, you might be paying a monthly subscription fee or something along those lines. And if you look at the holistic cost, over a long period of time, for example, say you look at it over several years, you may determine that the cost is significantly more. Even though you're paying per month, over the long period of time, it's going to be a higher cost. Next, we'll look at performance and reliability risks. There's 2 main items here. Obviously, when you're running and storing your data on someone else's server, and you need to access that data, there's going to be some potential performance risks associated with that. Depends on how fast their server is, and then there's also dependencies on the network speeds between you and where that data is stored. And then also there may be a geographical element to that as well. If you're accessing your data that's stored on a server in, let's say in Australia, there's going to be some potential latency concerns with that. And so those are all good questions to ask before one moves to a cloud-based architecture. The other one is if there's any outage risks that could potentially impact the business. And by that is, if they have to do something with the server or relocate the server or potentially just software updates, if those outage risks are occurring during a time which might be night at where the server is located, it might be actually business hours in terms of your business where it's located. And so that could result in an impact to business operations and ultimately business performance. And integration risks. There's a couple things here. Is typically a cloud-based enterprise system solution really does not offer a lot of customizations, and so this is really going to be, this may or may not be an issue for your business depending on the nature of the business. You may be okay with not doing any or perhaps very few or small customizations with the software. And if that's the case, then it may be a good fit for you. However, if you do have the need to perform at least several or some customizations or integrations with other applications, then perhaps the cloud-based architecture is not an appropriate solution. Next up, we'll look at vendor reliance risk. And really what this is driving towards is once you have your enterprise system on a cloud-based architecture and is offered through a vendor, obviously your company is going to become more heavily reliant or even somewhat dependent on that vendor for your business critical system. And so obviously there may be an element of risk associated with that. In addition to vendor reliance risk, if you decide that, hey, we're not getting the service, or for whatever reason you would like to potentially transfer or begin moving from your old vendor to a new vendor, maybe it's cheaper, there might be some cost savings associated with the new vendor, it may be difficult to transfer from the old vendor to the new vendor. So that's another item at least to be aware of and keep in mind. Thank you for your time.